Okay, welcome to another edition of Mic Drop Mondays. Today is July 6th, 2025, as we are recording this. And we have a little bit of information. The NELC released an LM report, which is a financial report for our union. They released that about a week ago, so we go over that a little bit. And then, of course, the new budget bill doesn't have none of the bad things in it, which is great, but it does have some overtime rules, tax rules, that may save our members some money. That is good as well. And then, unfortunately, we got into a little podcast war last week with Brother Corey Walton. We had to kind of go over that for a couple of minutes, not too long. And then we had a special guest on the show, Jason Anderson. He's with the American Federation of Government Employees or Federal Government Employees, something like that. Anyway, I had a great talk with that brother. So here's the episode. All right, you guys. You can go look at. I was gonna say they released, but we didn't release the LM report. But you can go look at it. It's available. It's on a public website, Department of Labor website, olmsapp.dol.gov. And you search for the NELC. It was released on June 27th, 2025. The period it covered. LM report is like a report of all your money, all of our money as members of the union. So at the top, you see the period covered. It is from April the 1st, 2024 to March 31st of 2025. It was filed on June 27th of this year. The file number might make it easier to find it. The file number is 000-509. It's filed by our Secretary Treasurer, Nicole Ryan. And I just wanted to point out a couple of things in the report. It's up on the screen. The number one thing I think that everyone would be or should be concerned about is our assets. Like, how much money do we have? And we're doing very well financially. Our assets at the start of the reporting period were $459 million, so $460 million. We now are over $480 million. And if you subtract liabilities, you'll see net assets there on line 35. Net assets, we began the reporting period a year ago with $420 million in net assets. And we're up to $442 million in net assets. So $22 million to the good. If you want to know how or where our money comes from, right there under the Statement B, Receipts and Disbursements, you'll see that 61 million comes from per capita tax. Per capita tax is the amount that the members pay. Every member of the union pays like $10. I'm trying to find it. Did you guys see that number? It's like $10 and something cents per. It's bi-weekly. It gets paid bi-weekly. I saw it in here somewhere, but anyway, you'll see there's a line item that says how much are the dues, and the dues are $10 and something cents per member. Anyway, we collect total of $61 million in dues money, what they call it per capita tax. And then if you go down a couple lines, that's line 37 there. If you go down a couple lines, you see interest and dividends. And interest and dividends adds up to about $12 million. And so, you guys trying to highlight this? Oh, yeah, you are highlighting it. Good job. Interest and dividends, you put them together, it's like $12 million. And you look at $61 million in dues, $12 million in interest on our investments. We have a lot of money in different funds and investments and things like that. And then there's another source of income that I want to show you guys. You got to go all the way down. So the way this thing reads, it goes over all our property. There's a lot of different things in here. Fixed assets under Schedule 6 is your fixed assets, all different property that we own. mainly union offices around the country, our headquarters, the health plan, et cetera, et cetera. I want to go all the way down. Schedule 11 is all your officers and disbursements. You see how much everyone makes. Get it right this time. And then you got your Schedule 12 is your other employees, which some full-time and part-time employees, but they're kind of mixed in there. And you go all the way down to Schedule 14, if you can get there. And under Schedule 14, I'm trying to follow on my iPad. Are you there yet? You're not there yet,
went
right?
too far.
Yeah, I think I went too far too. Where am I at? There's no page numbers on this thing, you know?
11. Then we have, okay.
Yeah, I'm on Schedule 14, other receipts. See if you can get
right here. Okay.
All right, under Schedule 14, other receipts, you see this is money that we received, we the union received. And you know, it's not most of them are not a lot of money. They're not as significant. But if you go down, it's in alphabetical order where it says NELC health benefit plan, and then it says NELC service allowance. Yes, the NELC service allowance was $19 million. That means that the monies, and it's as a result, the government pays us back money. We as a union, because we have a health benefit plan, I don't know the legalities of it, but it's a substantial amount of money. $19 million went into the NELC funds. Just to give just an easy overview of the money in the last year, we brought in $61 million in dues money, $12 million, dividends, money on our investments, and then $19 million from the service fund. And you add that up and you're like, okay, that's $92 million coming in minus all of our expenses, but we still are ahead. We made $22 million last year. We're sitting on a lot of cash. Some of it, most of it is tied up in investments, but we would have access to that money if we wanted to. So there is starting to be a lot of discussion about how the union is spending its money. And for example, we're spending more money than we're bringing in dues money. And some people feel like that's not appropriate. But like I say, we do have those other two big sources of income, and that does count as well. So that is our money, So anyway, I just wanted to give you guys an overview on that. You can go look at the LM report for yourselves. Of course, you're going to look at all the line items, and you're going to say, what about this? What about that? I'm not going to be able to answer those questions. And the reason is because there just isn't a substantial discussion at all in the Executive Council. The Executive Council is supposed to be the governing body of the union in between conventions. And so I asked Sarah to put up the language from the Constitution. And, it says under the section on the Executive Council, which is section 11A, and it's on page 41 of the Constitution, you have the language that says second only to the convention and legislative and policy-making authority, it shall act between conventions on all matters related to the welfare of the union, not specifically prohibited by the membership, and it shall submit such proposed changes to the Constitution. The Executive Council is hereby authorized to, and then you got numbers 1, 2, blah, blah, blah. And number 3 is authorize and or ratify the payment of salaries, wages, expenses, allowances, and other disbursements which it deems necessary and appropriate to the purpose and functioning of this union other than provided for. So, the Executive Council is supposed to oversee the finances of the union, and we really don't. As I go around the country, I'm always talking about how the Executive Council is not executive and it's not council. We don't have any subcommittees. We don't meet and talk about different issues. We don't have any task force. We don't have any, the contract administration unit is house that are active in the union and have issues and things like that. And in the finances, these are decisions being made by the president of the union, and there really should be decisions and discussions that should take place amongst the entire leadership of the union, which is the executive council. So just wanted to point all that out to you guys because the LM report was released June 27th, and it is available to any member of the union to look at. Actually, it's a public record. And you guys should be aware of, how much money we have and how we spend it and this and that. I'll tell you one thing I'd like to see, and people say, well, we have all this money, what should we spend it on? And there's different ideas, and some people think we should just keep kind of investing it and growing it and, quote, saving it for a rainy day, which, looks like it's kind of starting to rain nowadays. But one thing I like to see us do is make an investment to try to organize the Amazon delivery drivers. And it would cost us some money because you'd have to send people in to organize and talk to them and things like that. But I think it's money well spent from our union. I think it's something that would really bode well for our future. I think it's a long-term going to be something that is really going to negatively impact us as letter carriers if Amazon is able to build that delivery network as a non-union, kind of throwaway employee delivery network versus forcing them to pay union wages, forcing them to have, what we would call career employees on their end. I think that would be very beneficial to us, and obviously be very beneficial to the delivery drivers that they get a job with Amazon. I think that's something that we could do. One of the things we could do with our money. There's now more Amazon delivery drivers than city letter carriers in this country. There's like 275,000 Amazon delivery drivers now currently. That was the last time they counted them. There's probably over 300,000 now. But anyway, just give you the finances of the union. I don't know if I can answer them, but anything pop off for you guys?
Well, I haven't really ever looked into like an LM report, so.
Yeah. All the branches file LM reports, state associations file LM reports, and then the national union files an LM report. And they have different reporting requirements. It depends on, the size of your branch and things like that. But every entity per the LMRA, the Labor Management something Act, per that act, every union, local union branch, state association, national union, international union has to file that report, and it is public record for anyone to see, particularly obviously the members of that union, but it is public record for anybody to see.
Yeah.
So, and there's always people to look at it and take certain things out of context, and it is frustrating. People say, "Oh, you gotta correct them," and I'm like, "Look, you guys saw there's like hundreds of line items there, like there's always going to be different comments and questions and things like that, and I'd rather have the transparency than hide it from people, and people are going to draw conclusions and they're going to see different things, and I think all of that is fine. I think I just would like for us to manage our money as a union through what the Constitution says, through the executive council of the union, which is supposed to be running the union in between conventions. That's what I'd like to see, and whatever decisions we make should be transparent and communicated to the membership. And of course, any member of the union can always state what their opinion is, and we have healthy debate and discussion about it. And that's just not happening right now.
Yeah.
All right. So the other thing that happened this week that was big was the big bill did pass, the budget bill, and was great was that all of the provisions we were worried about that were going to really negatively affect us by the time it came out of the House and then came out of the Senate and then it got reconciled, it's all gone. So all of the things that would have affected our retirement, the things they were talking about making us pay for our own union time, making us collect dues ourselves. I'll just say this, none of those things are going away. There are ideologues that believe that we are a public that we're stealing. That the public unions, like ourselves, are stealing money from the public, which is wholly not true. And anyway, so I have some discussion about that with a guest I have on from the American Federation of Government Employees. So you just hang on and listen to that discussion. But you'll know that those things that we were worried about in the bill are not in there. What is in there is something regarding overtime that would probably save our members money on their taxes. So first of all, there was a concern that the new provisions wouldn't affect us because there's language about the FLSA and tax exempt and all of that. I can tell you guys for a fact that postal workers, are covered under the FLSA, and therefore these provisions would apply to us. And so you got it up on the screen, what was released. So what you have is a tax deduction. And the tax deduction, you're going to file it at the end of the tax year. You can file up to $12,500 or $25,000 if you're married, filed jointly. And it's in effect from 2025 to 2028. And basically, you're going to be able to get a reduction in your taxes based on overtime that you worked. And so the money that is paid out, not the full amount of the overtime hours, but the additional money that's paid out per the law, per the FLSA, the extra 50%. I don't think it's going to be the penalty overtime. I think it'll just be the extra 50% for all the overtime hours worked. Of course, we want to know like what type of documentation we're going to have to submit. Is it just going to be like your last pay stub? Is the employer, the Postal Service, going to have to give us a special document that's going to say, here's the amount of overtime this person worked that is tax-free, or they're able to claim a reimbursement on their taxes for this amount. So I'm sure as we get closer to the end of the year, we'll know, and this is in effect through 2028. So we'll be able to file this over the next 3 years, and hopefully it'll save our members some money. They have a cap of 300,000 if you're married, filed jointly, or 150,000 if you're filing individually, or whatever, and all other filers. So most of our members will make it under there. During the pandemic, we had a few people in the 200 grand club, but that's kind of, that's died off pretty much. So we should be under the limit for people. And so, I think this is a good thing that ended up coming out of the bill. Don't forget about that other stuff, though. It's still going to be there. Now that we're starting to get some money in, there's no excuse for you guys not to be in the letter carrier political fund. I wear this hat all the time, not just because I like how it fits, but I think all of us should be in the fund and making sure that we're in the political game. I think as a union, we do pretty good, particularly with our lobbying efforts in DC. And you saw that over the last couple of weeks where we were able to make sure that stuff was not in the bill. Of course, it's not just us. It was things that were going to affect other unions and other government employees and federal employees. And, everyone's kind of working together. So I'm not going to say, oh, we did it, but we played our part. And I think that I think our lobbying program is really strong in DC. I'd like to see us have a stronger grassroots lobbying program. With the number of members that we have an average of 500 to 800 members in every congressional district in America. There's 435 congressional districts. We're in every single one of them. I'd like to see us have a presence with every single congressman and congresswoman so that we can get our stuff passed. I mean, we're still trying to get different things like the Retirement Fairness Act passed so people can get credit for their non-career time. We want maternity leave. We can get included in that. We want the what do they call it? Protect Our Letter Carriers Act, which I've been pushing for the inclusion of postal police in that. There's a Postal Police Reform Act that Senator Durbin has been pushing that would force the Postal Service to send postal police out onto the streets to actually protect letter carriers and not just defend the real property of the Postal Service. So, these are things that we could have a higher likelihood of getting passed if we had a better grassroots effort, coordination in our union between the liaisons that we have to every congressional district in America, working with those state associations, having the regional offices have a connection from NELC headquarters to the regional offices to the state associations to the liaisons, and making sure that we have all of those places covered and activating our members where necessary in those districts if we're getting, running into a stubborn congressman or congresswoman. So anyway, that's just something to look forward to as well. But what every letter carrier can do today is just join the letter carrier political fund. That's an easy thing to do. And hopefully you guys are seeing our successes and wanting to be a part of that so we can protect our jobs and protect our future going forward. So any questions you guys had about the new overtime provisions in the law or in the bill? It's not called a law, right? It's a budget bill.
Yeah, it's a budget bill.
Yeah, I don't have any.
Yeah, I don't have any either.
Okay. All right. Well, the last thing I wanted to cover, and I'll do this real quick here, but I just didn't want to leave it unsaid. Renee, you kind of got into the spotlight this week in the podcast wars. And, you guys run this show as the producers of the show. And there's a lot of prep work that goes into it. And there's editing and there's talking to the guests that come on. And I just really appreciate the hard work that you guys do in helping out and putting this to, me or the campaign is not paying you. It's not like that. You're just doing it because you want to help this, put out a good product for the members and help out the campaign. And for Corey Walton to call you a liar, Renee, it didn't sit well with me. And, it's just reflective of kind of his style. There's a lot of hardworking people that work for this union in so many different capacities. And by all means, we're not perfect. And by all means, there's room for criticism. But when you insult someone's integrity, when you insult their motivations, when you call them names, it doesn't help build the union. And if Corey Walton is going to be a legitimate candidate for executive vice president, and as of now, I don't know anyone else is running against him, but if he's going to be a legitimate candidate that we're going to be able to have confidence in and support in that position, he's going to have to stop attacking the members of the union. And in this case was so, I don't want to use the word silly because anyway, I won't use the word silly. In this case, it was so unnecessary because Renee, and we were just joking about it. We're having a good time here. The way you described the event of what happened is exactly what he said happened. Initially, he said, I'm going to buy raffle tickets and I don't want any of the money. And then he took the money. And all he had to do was describe why he took the money because I guess Diana convinced him he should take the money. And I don't have a problem with that. I don't think any of us have a problem with that. I would take the money if I would have won it. So that's not an issue, but to come out and attack you and attack me, and it's like, come on, dude, let's not keep doing this. And maybe at some point he'll turn the corner and maybe he won't. But if he wants to be a candidate, a legitimate candidate in our union for the position of executive vice president, we just can't have that. And I don't know, Renee, if you want to talk about it. I know you called them, and you guys had a conversation, and maybe you don't want to talk about because obviously it's a personal conversation between you and him.
No. The only thing I want to clear up is that none of us are alcoholics.
Oh, that too.
Definitely not.
Yeah, that was all I
Definitely
had to
not.
clear up. None of us are alcoholics. That was pretty much all I had to clear up there. I mean, it was the state convention, and we did have a pub crawl, so yeah. And at that time, you did have a drink in your hand because we were at the mixer. So no, that was it. Just none of us are alcoholics. That was it.
And which we were just joking about, and I think it's a very clear fact that, at least for me personally, I know I drink far less than your average letter carrier, and I drink far less than at union functions and all that. I'm not the guy that's, you see getting drunk and drinking a lot or whatever.
Yeah, we're
I'm a
not
social drinker at
opening
best,
any
and
doors and going through the glass.
Yeah.
What was what's the said
they
at
haven't caught us in any
National?
bushes, right?
No, yeah,
No.
no one has us on video doing any of that. So yeah, or yeah.
And
Yeah.
one of the things and there was a lot of the members, Corey came to the convention. And when you're coming to the convention and you're a candidate, there's going to be people that are going to say, hey, glad to see you. I mean, we had plenty of what I call the fanboys and fangirls, that want to take a picture. That's great. No issue there. But there's also people that want to have some words with you. And I will tell you, there's a few people, and I don't know if they went to Corey and brought this up or talked to James about it, but they have an issue with him calling Lou Drass an alcoholic. And I have an issue with it, but I talk to Corey. And what I try to do when I have a conversation with Corey or with anybody is I'll tell you what I said, but I don't like to tell you what they said because I want them to speak for themselves. And I don't want to misrepresent their words or their opinions or whatever. But obviously, Corey has a podcast, so you can hear exactly what he thinks. But him calling Lou Drass an alcoholic, I don't know that the man is an alcoholic. I know that he likes to drink. And I also know that some of the most coherent conversations I've had with Lou Drass over the years have been at a bar after he's drunk way more than I could drink and be coherent. And he's able to really maintain himself very well. And so to me, alcoholic is a medical term. It's when a person has lost control and the alcohol has taken over them. And obviously we want to be cognizant of that and we want to be honest about that when that is something that is affecting us. But I don't think that Corey's in a position to make that determination. I don't think he's talked to Lou about it. Lou's a funny guy, man. I remember having a conversation with Lou one time where we were talking about smoking, and like to me, I don't know, I'm a little bit younger than they are, and you guys are even younger than me, but to me, smoking cigarettes is like a thing of the past. Like, who the hell smokes cigarettes nowadays, right? But Lou still smokes. Well, last time I talked to him, he was still smoking. And the funny, he was saying he was talking about like not smoking as much and stuff. But then he said this line, which I'll never forget. He said, "But I don't want to quit or nothing." I just thought that was so funny because he enjoys smoking cigarettes. Like, good for him, Like, I'm
Yeah.
not his mama, And the brother likes to drink, and like I say, I don't know. I'm sure there's been some negative effects of the drinking, but I don't know what those have been, and that's for him to figure out, and for Corey to get up and kind of act like he's better than somebody else, and this person's an alcoholic, and denigrate them and stuff. I just don't like all that. And it was something else I was about to say that slipped my mind. But anyway, you guys
But I
got any
mean,
more
and
comments on that?
I mean, and if you are an alcoholic, we do have EAP. We have people through the Postal Service that you can talk to,
Well,
and everything else. So I mean, yeah, I don't think it's,
that's what I was gonna say. The
yeah,
the
yeah.
thing I forgot to say was Corey has stated multiple times that we, and I don't know why he doesn't include James Henry in this, but we, the other people on the executive council, we should have known, or we did know that Brian Renfro was an alcoholic. I can tell you, I don't know to this day. I don't know he's an alcoholic other than what he has shared. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm not the man's doctor. I'm not with him at any of his meetings. Have I seen the brother drunk? Yes, I have. Multiple occasions? No, I've probably seen him drunk once or twice. For me to make that determination that he's an alcoholic, I can't make that. And the funny thing, the ironic thing is that Corey Walton had a very extensive interview with Brian Renfro while he was a candidate for president. And they're both from the same region, Region 8. I'm sure Corey Walton had seen or heard many of the stories. If he thought that it was a significant thing at the time, he definitely could have asked Brother Renfro, hey, do you think you have a drinking problem? Do you consider yourself an alcoholic? Give us some details, etc. He interviewed him, like I said, when he was a candidate for president. But it just seems like the brother just wants to take shots at everybody and doesn't really, he doesn't involve when he's throwing them darts. He doesn't throw them no darts at himself. And I don't know. I got a problem with that. And like I said, when you're an outsider, when you're a guy with a podcast, I don't really have a problem with that because that's the role you're playing. But when you're the candidate for executive vice president of our union, I just it's not okay. And him calling you a liar, Renee, not cool. Just not cool. The other thing I was going to tell you guys, I'm not going to get into the whole with the CLC and why I'm not a member of the CLC, whatever. If you guys go to my website, careforprez.org, there's a tab on there. It's like documents or something like that. You can click on the documents tab, and there's a letter that I wrote in June of 2024 to all of the people in the CLC and anyone else that wanted to read it, to just explain the situation of what happened from my perspective. I never got a letter back from nobody. Like, nobody ever said this is not valid or whatever. I don't know why Corey and other people still bring that stuff up. I think it's definitely water under the bridge. I'm not going to keep talking about it, but if one of you out there reads the letter and you got some questions for me, by all means, call me, email me, find me on any one of the social media platforms. Everything is Care for Prez, CAREF, the number 4, PREZ. You can send an email to careforprez@gmail. You can contact us through the website, careforprez.org. And it's not that I'm trying to duck the questions or anything like that. But anyway, it's not worth our energy to keep regurgitating the same stuff over and over again. At this point, I'm a candidate for president. The organization known as Concerned Letter Carriers has some candidates for various offices. I'm not running against any of them except for if they run James Henry as the candidate for president. I plan to win that race, but other than that, I don't know why we can't just all get along. But anyway, that's where I'm at with that. You guys got anything more on any of that? Awesome. Let's put it to bed. Let's move on with our lives.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for indulging me there for a couple of minutes. We'll try to stay away from all that stuff in the future. All right, everyone. Welcome to a new edition of Mic Drop Mondays. Today is July 2nd. We are recording this. We have a special guest with us, which is identified on the screen, Jason Anderson. If you're looking at him, you can see he is from the AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees, something like that.
That's it.
And all right, awesome. So thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. A lot of things that are affecting letter carriers are affecting all federal workers, and you guys represent all different segments in the federal workforce. So I thought it'd be cool if you came on, let us know, hey, what's going on in your world? Where do our worlds intersect? How can we help each other out maybe? And just kind of get a better understanding of what's going on out there. So I will turn the floor over to you for an introduction, and then we'll get to it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be a part of this, so I appreciate it. I represent federal workers in Michigan, Illinois, and Wisconsin. I'm National Vice President for AFGE. I serve on the Illinois AFL State Fed Board with Mike, so I have the privilege of working with Mike and collaborating on different things, all things
the
labor.
Privilege and the burden, brother. Privilege and the burden.
So just like you said, we're facing all of this together, and it's important that we realize the impacts that we have are going to cross into other labor entities, and as long as we're all in this together, fighting this together, that's the only way we're going to win this, right? Unified labor coming out and fighting together. So
awesome. So you guys, you represent I know you represent TSA workers, border control, OSHA, Department of Labor. Like who do you all represent?
Yeah, so we represent Veterans Affairs is our largest group of federal civilian workers. We have Social Security Administration, HUD, EPA, NOAA. We have the Department of Defense, Army Corps of Engineers. We have agricultural research specialists, food inspectors, EEOC. We represent people that work for the the U.S. Citizens Immigration Services. You said Border Patrol. We represent them. We represent Bureau of Prisons. Name it. We've pretty much have people in every different federal civilian workforce you can think of.
Wow. And so, recently, with the new president in the White House, seems to have really kind of targeted you guys more so than ever. You want to say kind of, so what are some of the changes and what are some of the things that have really affected the federal workforce?
Yeah. So, as you know, like there's been a number of attacks since, the new administration, since the inauguration in January. We started with attacks on probationary workers. There was attacks on federal workers, like basically saying return to work, just kind of like demonization of, federal workers as a whole, as if they haven't been working for years and years. With telework and remote work, but actually it's just return to in-office work, things like that. Also, the threats of reduction in force, the 5 bullet point emails, which was like, prove to us what you've been doing.
Right. Send me an essay on your activities.
Yeah, exactly. The 5 bullet points could cover all of the, the work that's being provided by these individuals, with zero guidance to managers or employees. Was just a fear tactic. You heard that, Russell Vought stated he wanted federal workers to wake up in trauma, right? This is what they want. Damn. They want people to be fearful of termination or removal, as if they have something to be, fearful of.
Who's that Russell? What's his title?
He is now over the Office of OMB, Management, the Budget. Right, he was an author of Project 2025, so he, was one of the president's, authors of that whole entire project. So he's behind all of the bad things that are happening to federal workers right now.
Is that one of the big tenets of Project 25, going after the federal workforce?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So. Some of the other things that they've been doing is like everything to shrink the size of these government workforces. The deferred resignation program, we're basically saying, hey, you're going to get laid off anyway. So if you want, why don't you guys just go ahead and take this voluntary resignation program, and we'll pay you till September. We'll pay you to stay at home just so that we can lay you off in September. There's just a number of things, the hiring freezes, basically lying to the American people and telling them that, there are certain provisions, certain positions that would not be frozen or not affected. But then those like doctors, who are performing surgeries for veterans, stating, oh, there's no impact there. But if you, get rid of people who clean the ORs or who schedule the surgeries, then you still can't have the surgeries, right? So it's one thing to keep nurses and doctors, but if you don't have the people supporting those functions, it's a huge problem. So putting freezes on contracts contracts that service some of the most vulnerable, citizens in America, like for housing and urban development, things for HUD, like where people are Section 8 housing, if they need any kind of funding for that, laying off all of the people that would, approve grants and funding so that none of those processes could move forward. Just all across the board, everything you could do to impact services to the American people without necessarily saying that that's exactly what you're doing was what was happening, is continuing to happen.
How is that affecting, like, I know we have a lot of veterans in our workforce, work as letter carriers, work for the Postal Service. How has all of this affected, like, the services at the VA, for example?
Yeah, so, I recently told this story, like in Ann Arbor, Michigan, we had a story of a probationary podiatrist who had a patient come in, a veteran, who had an infection on his foot, something very treatable. But because of the way the scheduling is, right, and the lack of hiring per se, so the VA historically for many years has been understaffed, is something we've been talking about for a long time. And so we see it as a way of moving towards privatization. If you just can't staff these positions, it makes it harder to get in. And we tell, they tell the people like, oh, the VA system is terrible. You need to go into the community, which is just not better for veterans, right? You want to go to a place that understands veterans issues, and can work with veterans, and also deal with, there's trauma. Veterans have a lot of war trauma, things like that. And sometimes going in the private sector, they might not understand those areas and be able to also put all of the pieces together to say, hey, people that were in this war seem to have this kind of condition, and can do those studies and say, well, this is an effect of this, whatever they were subjected to.
Right. You have people that specialize in those kind of things and are familiar with what they're looking at and able to diagnose and assist those veterans better than the private sector is just random,
Yeah. So this doctor goes to treat this individual, and the algorithm they're using, because obviously they don't have the staffing to do what they would need to do, said that they should send this patient into a primary care treatment first, which would have taken 6 months to treat this individual just to get the person into a visit because of the short staffing. That would have almost all but guaranteed this veteran was amputated from the knee down just because of an infection on his foot. He was a diabetic. So the podiatrist said, no, we're just going to go ahead and do this minor procedure to treat this right now against the algorithm. And after, basically save that individual's leg. The management wanted to essentially put this person on threat of termination, because they're a probationary employee.
They're probationary, right?
Yeah, you shouldn't have done that. You should have followed the algorithm. And the doctor said, listen, I have an oath to the patient. I'm here for the patient. And, if you want to fire me because I did what I believe was medically necessary and in the best interest of that patient, then so be it. And these are the kind of, consequences to what's happening right now is the short staffing, and they're moving to, algorithms and not looking at patients as human beings and relying on doctors and their actual evaluation of patients and saying, what is the best decision from your medical experience and your, professional experience? They're relying on, no, the algorithm says you should do this. So these are some of the challenges we're facing right now. And some of the veterans and the American people just don't understand, they see it, the messaging when you control, Twitter, X, or you control big, media conglomerates, and you say that, the services being provided by federal workers is subpar, or, they're lazy workers. That, American people just don't see and understand that, no, these are your neighbors, your family members, the people you go to church with. These are just hardworking American people who swore oath to serve and protect American people. And oftentimes they're not given the resources, whether that be staffing or, to pay for things like, when they shut off your credit card at work and there's no toilet paper at the facility because there's no credit card to be able to purchase this. These are some of the challenges that they're facing. And it really is the lack of media focus on that, right? That nobody wants to say, well, because of these actions by Doge or the White House, we can't afford toilet paper for the veterans who come to the hospital. So bring your own toilet paper, things like that, right?
Yeah, federal workers, for the most, I'm, you don't want to say blanket, but, these are people that are from our communities and are there to aid and assist. You have people that work for OSHA, you have people that work for the Department of Labor, EEO, you mentioned, there's all these different agencies, Social Security, there's OPM, there's, whatever, all these different agencies that all of us use, and particularly, us, we don't work directly for the federal government, we work for the United States Postal Service, but we are part of a lot of the federal government entities, and we utilize the federal government services just like every other American utilizes. And, on the one hand, you hate to see the services downgraded, like for our veterans and stuff like that, but also you hate to see these type of things happen to our fellow workers, that are out there struggling and trying to make ends meet just like we are. I know you and I had talked about a lot of the stuff with the TSA workers and how they just voided the contract and, some of the things that happened with them. I don't know if you want to go into some of that.
Yeah. So February 27th, the administrator came down and said, the contract that was agreed upon by Homeland Security and AFGE in 2024 is null and void because we've just determined that we're not going to do that. So they didn't want to honor the contract. So immediately the messaging to the TSOs, the officers at the airport, was you no longer have a union, which is not true, right? They can illegally break the contract and do things like that, which we are addressing through legal actions. And, thankfully, the judge ruled for a preliminary injunction, which has right now back to the status quo where the contract is back in effect. But
that's good.
Yeah, but during that period, you have managers doing shows like of going into the break room and taking the contract and tearing it up and saying you no longer have like you no longer have a union. And one of the things in their contract was they would have water stations at all of the checkpoints for the officers. Well,
we could have brought them our water when we go through, and just the water we have extra.
Exactly.
Oh no!
Plenty of water,
No.
alcohol, Gatorade, Coke.
Yeah, you never know. It might have resulted in that, but that's what they did immediately after. They went and out of spite, that's what it seemed to the officers was like, you went and took away the water stations that was there for TSOs working in these areas, like, long periods without, when there's a rush, there's no really time to say, yeah, go break so you guys can get hydrated. So that was there. They also did things like, in their contract, like normal, like what's a reasonable period of time that you're sick before you would require a doctor's note. Normally it's like minimum 3 days. If you're off more than 3 days, you might want to have a doctor's note.
Yeah,
Here,
our rules is more than 3 days. That's in our employee labor relations manual.
Yeah, that's typically standard, right? That's kind of like the golden rule across, many of the agencies. Well, here it was like, if you take off any sick leave, it could be 15 minutes. They want a doctor's note. It's like, come on, now this is a little excessive. Like if you feel a little under the weather for one day and you're not sure if it's something serious or you just want to protect the workers, right? You're going to take a day off and they're like, well, now we need you to take more time off to go see a doctor and pay your copay and bog down the doctors with more visits that are just things that you normally could address. So just silly things like that, like decreasing the uniform stipend that would be for the TSOs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, doing away with, female specific uniform items, making it, unisex, just crazy things that were like, these are the things that people take for granted, like in their contract, like, hey, we can go on and get a female specific uniform. That's something negotiated, right? And as soon as that contract was deemed null and void, just doing crazy things like that to cost cutting measures or, lessening the window period for uniform purchases, things like that were just crazy. So
is the terms of the contract back in effect now?
Yeah, they're back for now.
Temporarily or whatever.
Until we actually, the case moves forward through the actual merits of the case, which is great. And that's something that we've been, now that we have access back to the officers and we're telling the rest of the federal civilian workers that we represent is that, the administration agencies can, attempt to violate your contract, but they can't take away your union. Only you can give away your union. Right? We were a union long before we had contracts. AFGE was formed in the 30s. The federal management labor statute was enacted into law in 78. So contracts came after that, right? We negotiated contracts. So
we got a similar history. We started in 1889, and we just got the right to collectively bargain our contract after the strike of 1970 with the Postal Reorganization Act of 1970. So kind of similar.
Yeah, same thing, right? So it's just a group of people coming together and having a collective voice. We're saying, hey, these are issues. And some of the things we've talked to them about is, do you believe that there will be fewer or greater numbers of disciplinary and removal actions without contract? Greater, right? So just having to kind of educate members like, you're going to need to be a part of a union and have collective resources now more than ever. So this is definitely the time that you want to ensure that your union is solvent, strong, and you all have a strong voice when it comes to your continued employment with the federal government, right? Because it's not just about their employment. It's we're the eyes, ears, and the voices of the American people we're serving every day, right?
Like you guys are open shop, all federal workers, or because I know we are, like, it's voluntary to join the union.
Yes.
We do really good. I mean, we're like well into the 90 percentile members, letter carriers joining the union. But is that way for all federal workers?
Yeah, the statute, it's required under the statute. It says that all federal employees that are under a designated unit covered by a unit have, equal representation without fear of, reprisal for their membership status, things like that. So yeah, we represent every employee in our units, whether they're dues paying members or not.
Right. We do too. Yeah.
And
we got to represent the scabs by law.
But that's also, we tell people, it's like, that's why there's the thing called official time. And a lot of, the American public, they hear this, official time and abuses. It's like, well, Congress has determined it's in the best interest for American people to have a check and a balance, which is the union. And because they understand that there might be people who are not dues paying members, that's why we get the official time. It's
I never put two and two together. So, we have, paid steward time. Anyway, we don't call it official time, but maybe it comes from the same law. I don't know. But we get paid steward time under the terms of our contract. But recently there was talk they had all these provisions in this budget bill, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. One of the things was we're going to go after official time and also include postal workers, which, it's in our actual collective bargaining agreement that we get paid steward time. But of course, at the end of our collective bargaining agreement, the last article says if anything is modified through legislation, then that would trump the terms of your contract. So, I mean, that's something that obviously for now that's been, put to the side, but that's something that would really affect us negatively. And you make a great point. It's like we don't have a closed shop. We're not able to collect dues money from everybody. And the trade-off is that you get time on the clock to handle your grievances and your steward duties. And that's probably a pretty good deal for everybody.
Yeah.
You think about it.
It's definitely a fair deal. And it's like you said, and, the big, beautiful bill that's being, voted on as we speak, they were attacking official time. And, the reason is they understand that their hope is that will put a nail in the coffin for federal civilian unions, because they understand that with an open shop that, we have places sometimes that we only have 20% penetration as far as union members to non-union member ratio.
Oh, wow.
And if they had to pay for all of that official time, that's the reason the parliamentarian, one of the reasons is it conflicted with the statute, right? If the statute requires us to provide equal representation to non-dues paying members, then you forcing us to pay for the official time, if 80% of the people are not paying and we still have to fairly represent them, then that's a problem, right? It's an issue. So yeah, there's a lot of provisions of that bill, like you said, they
had one about collecting dues. It wouldn't allow dues checkoff, right?
Yeah, that's what we're faced with right now. Like with this injunction, we even had an injunction right now because they tried to make 2/3 of the federal civilian workforce designated as national security. And as such would say, like, VA worker is no longer allowed to have union representation. That could be a housekeeper because you're national security exempt. EPA, across the board. And it was like, well, wait a second. Everybody but law enforcement, firefighters, and security guards, were listed. Well, I don't want to say everyone in these groups, the 2/3. There were some agencies that were exempted, like Social Security and things like that. But food inspectors were listed as national security. The Bureau of Prisons, even though they're law enforcement, it said all law enforcement are exempt except for Bureau of Prisons. And that's because they're represented by AFGE. So it's intentionally like, yeah, we're going to go after them too because they're part of AFGE. But yeah, so because of that, they aren't collecting dues. And that's what we've been faced with. It's been like a huge crisis here at AFG. And the administration understands that if we can't collect dues, then we have an issue being able to sustain ourselves as a union, right? We have staffing, we have attorneys that, challenge the administration with nationwide.
So people have to pay their dues directly, like direct deposit, or like deductions from the checking accounts, or how is it going?
Yeah, so we've actually, there was some forethought that, under the previous Trump administration, there were some things like this as well. So we have something called e-dues, and we're encouraging every member, whether they're paying through the agency dues deductions or not, to just sign up, basically taking out the middleman. There will no longer be dues deductions. We're asking them, because we understand that this is going to be a roller coaster. We get an injunction, they file an appeal, they stop it. Who knows what's going to happen? So we can't. It's a problem that we've realized is, trying to track down members. I'll give you an example. We had a TSA when they stopped collecting dues for that group. There was about 24,000 dues paying members, and then after, we only had about 3,000 of those people that converted. You use that number.
Oh,
right?
wow.
And I'll give you an exact number. Like the one local I have, and this will be more precise, is the local had about 1,500 members, and then after just trying to convert people, there was 150 members. That's
10%.
a huge, that's a huge drop off. So
wow,
if you lose that kind of membership, per capita payment, dues payment, that's going to severely impact our ability to provide staffing and resources for representation.
Right. What'd you guys do out at OHare Airport? Was it last week?
We've been out there several times, and that was the thing, is before the injunction was granted, the administration, TSA, the agency also was like, no, you guys can't even come in to the break rooms. We don't want the union anywhere around, right? So how can we connect with those individuals? Like, for whatever reason, the messaging was strong from the agency, like, you don't have a union, don't believe those people, they can't provide you with any form of representation, which is a lie, right? Because there's clearly, Merit System Protection Board, like statutory appeals. If you get fired, there's ways outside of arbitration that we can help, protect you. EEOC, there's absolutely going to be discrimination, right? We can see that's running rampant in the media, right? Try to do away with, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Why would we want to do away with those? So that there's no protections for people who are suffering from discrimination as well. So what we did out there is we got a group of people, which is awesome. And this is why it's so important to have allies in the fight. We worked with CFL, Chicago Federation of Labor. They connected us with a lot of different, labor organizations, their organizers. We had Jobs with Justice came out and helped us. Don Villar, Marcus Shepard. We had.
They're from the Chicago Federation of Labor.
Yeah, Andy Grimm was also from the News Guild. We've just had a lot of people who've been assisting, and so we've gone out there and we were out in the parking lots where the employees.
So you're just providing information to the eight officers, I guess you call them, right? The TSOs.
Yeah, just giving them a different perspective on, hey, you might be hearing this, but we're still here. Your union's still here fighting for you. Asking them to fill out surveys on like what's happening to them, making sure that their voices are heard collectively, and just kind of explaining what resources they have available, and if they need help, who to reach out to, and let them know to make sure their voices are heard. Don't let the agency take away their voice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you, and I kind of told you, we talked on the phone earlier, and I told you I was going to ask this question, and it's a tough one for me, and I think it's a tough one for a lot of our members. And you see the attacks. It's hard to describe it any other way coming out of the Trump White House, but I'm sure, just like in our union, there's a lot of people that support President Trump, voted for President Trump, and it's a challenging thing. Even the terminology that we want to use, or just how do we talk about this with our members who obviously have the right to vote for whoever they want to. We're not trying to take away anyone's democratic right. But in fact, the Trump administration, maybe not Trump as a person, but that administration has been really severely anti-union and has gone after particularly the federal workforce, and made some threats toward the Postal Service and other workers as well. And so how do we have those conversations with our members? How do you guys do it? Because you guys represent like the Border Patrol, and I'm sure there's certain segments of your union that are very supportive of the president. I would imagine,
Yeah, it's very tough because, like, you and I spoke, we have a diverse union, and we do have a large percentage that are, support conservative, candidates, members of Congress, things like that. And we have a large, diverse group that supports Democrats and just people that are in the middle. So what, I try to do personally is make sure that we're focusing on issues, and we try to educate people, like, labor. We have to, like, stand in solidarity when we focus on issues such as pay, benefits, working conditions, the services that we provide to the American people, making sure we're educating people on that, just fairness and equality in the workplace. We can get 100% support and buy-in on those issues. It doesn't matter if you're conservative, right, you're liberal, or whatever. When we start talking about, do we want, our retirement to be based on a high 3 or a high 5? I think everybody, it doesn't matter, saying a high 3. We don't want the high 5. When we say that, hey, they're going to start charging 10% tax on union dues, 100% of our people are saying, no, we don't want that. Right. When we start saying, hey, they want to charge for our union official time, for taxpayer funded time, 100% of our members are saying that would be bad for our, the people we represent.
Right, that would harm us.
Right. Clearly, it's 100% across the board. And then,
we've seen Republicans support us in Congress and the Senate. I wouldn't go so far as in the White House, but we definitely have seen, support on both sides of the aisle for the federal workforce and the work that we do and the value that we provide to the American people. I mean, as letter carriers, we like to think, everyone has a value, but we're like, hey, man, we're like we're in Sesame Street, like we're during the pandemic, they said we were essential. They said we're a vital part of the community and all of that. And anyway, it's just it's good that we still do have some love from people in both parties and on both sides and that kind of thing. And like I agree with what you're saying. You gotta build unity. You gotta build unity within the union around the things that are good for all of us, and not get sidetracked by ideologies and stuff like that.
Yeah, we try to help people too to just understand, like, they, the powers that be would love nothing more than for us to be divided and have internal fighting. That's it, right? They want that. So I know the labor movement as a whole is about, us standing together in solidarity, and we need to find commonalities to understand, like, how do we get everybody in this fight? We talk about, I've mentioned it, like, really, it's clear as day, the Conservative Party formed a coalition to have the Heritage Foundation come up with Project 2025. Where is our Project 2029? Finally, after messaging this, I've been at rallies talking to, you heard me say it at the Illinois AFL meeting. Where is it?
You're getting some traction on that one?
Yeah, the Dems finally put out, hey, they're going to have a Project 2029. Okay. And it's like, what are we doing? And we can't always be reactive. The labor part, like the labor movement, has to steer the ship and say, what are the things that we want to see? What are the problems that we're experiencing now? And this should never be this way again, right? So what can we focus on and be unified? But also talking to both sides. Like, I talk to members as well. A lot of our members will talk to one party. You've got to talk to both Republicans and Democrats so they can understand our issues. Sometimes it can be tough to build that initial relationship, but
I'm sure you guys got the same thing we do, whereas we have members all over the place. And I was going to ask you, like, what % of your members are in DC versus all over? But I know there's federal workers everywhere. We estimate we have between 500 and 800 members in every single congressional district in America. And so those are people that one of our members voted for that person for sure. If not, many hundreds of our members voted for that person, and should be able to go in there and get in that congressional office and talk to their staff or that congressman or congresswoman about what our issues are, and make friends, make alliances.
And that's it. And then leveraging that. So if you've got somebody in your district that I have a trouble getting in an appointment with, picking up the phone and saying, Mike, think you can get our people in a visit? We're having troubles. And then we can start building that relationship. So I think that's where it needs to start with us at the labor movement, because for whatever it is, on Capitol Hill, they're not getting the job done, in my opinion, right? Like they don't want to work with the other party. It's very difficult for them to come up with bipartisan solutions to anything. And it can't be so far left or so far right that the American people are the ones suffering. That's the issue we're seeing.
Right. No, great points, man. I appreciate the information. So next time you guys are going to have something, send me a text. Let me know. We try to be as activist of a union as we possibly can. We believe in getting out there. So if you guys need some hands out there and talking to people or handing things out or whatever, or making a little picket or whatever you guys want to do, we'd love to help you. Just let us know. And if there's something that you guys are mobilizing for, definitely let us know. Put the information out, or you can let everyone know if there's a place, like a website or someplace they should go for more information. I don't know where you're at with that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And this is a huge start, right? Just getting this. I'm sure a lot of your members will watch this and hear about it. And if there's ever anything, you guys, like I was last week at the Central Regional AFL-CIO in Chicago. They had that gap. I know you were tied up. But just talking to some of the other unions, like this one gentleman from the forestry was like, hey, I have a VA right across from my local. Just building those connections. If you want to, like, if there's like anybody of your members are like, we've got this agricultural research center right across the street. We don't know what they do. We can have someone come out and educate them to say, these are the services we provide, and these are the services that are going to be impacted, and how can we help each other? And, go into the member of Congress's office and locked arms and say, we're standing in solidarity with this group, or so on and so forth. Things like that. Anything that you guys can do would be great.
I love it, man. I love it. All right. Sarah, Renee, got any questions for the brother? Any thoughts? Any comments?
I think you said, but I was curious if like when they like disbanded the collective bargaining agreement, if when you had the injunction to get it back, if there was an increase in membership, but then I guess not, because with the dues situation.
Did they go back to dues deduction, like payroll deductions?
Well, in some places, yes. And then so for example, there was one that the NTEU had filed and there was an injunction. So the Bureau of Prisons were a part of that. So they restored their dues, and then there was an appeal filed. And then because of that appeal, they've since, taken away those dues deductions again. And that's why we say there's this roller coaster ride. So we went to
that's why you got the e-dues.
Yeah. So what we're trying to do as soon as we get in there now, as soon as like these injunctions, utilizing that as an opportunity to get in front of, the bargaining unit employees and say, hey guys, the dues are back, but we'd prefer you to sign up for e-dues, because they're just going to do this again, and have that opportunity to explain to them, what a union is, what it means to be a union, and they can't take away your union, right? They can take away your contract, but these are the ways that you can still protect yourself.
At the end of the day, we're a fraternal organization. We look out for each other. There's value in that, no matter what we're able to accomplish, in addition to.
100%.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that, man. All right, brother, you got any final words or anything else we missed?
I would love to say just thank you so much for what you do. I appreciate it. And I appreciate, the solidarity, and thank you so much for having me on and allowing me to speak on behalf of, the people I represent. And we look forward to working with you guys, and, whatever you guys need. I want to extend that back to you. If there's something we can do to support you all and your members, we'd be right there with you. So please, you got my number. Don't hesitate to reach out.
We just can't reach out on Sundays, but we'll reach out.
That's an inside joke, because normally we film the show on Sundays, but you said you'd rather do it in a weeknight evening. But hey, Renee, this brother's probably on about 12 hours of work by now. This is
I know.
Like,
so I said it. We'll reach out. We know to leave Sundays alone.
Our union, I don't know how you guys, man, but Sunday, it's not 100% off for everybody, but for most of our members, it's an off day. But we end up doing so many meetings and trainings, and it's like Sunday ain't no damn off day anymore for people that are heavily involved in the union. But we're gonna get it back one of these days.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, my brother. Well,
All right.
we appreciate your time and coming on and talking to us. And have a great night. And we will definitely be in touch.
All right. Take
Solidarity,
care.
my brother.
Thank you. Take
Have a
care.
good one.